And that's just a regular home inspector, right? General home
Yeah.
inspection.
Yeah,
Yes.
by the way, most on-site places will have specific requirements for the lender or for the home inspector. I would say certainly most big home inspection companies are going to have them, but they have to be like they have to have certain levels of insurance and they have to have certain certifications and these kind of things.
ASHI compliant.
Yeah.
And they don't like it.
Oh, they don't like anyone coming on their property
Yeah.
and telling them what they did wrong. But you know what? I'm not representing the builder. I'm representing my client. And guess who they're going to call if something's wrong with the home after the fact? It's going to be me. And I personally don't, I mean, I'll take the call. I'll do whatever I got to deal with, but I would prefer to prevent that call from happening.
To not, right.
Yeah. All right, guys. Good morning. How are we?
Morning, Bill.
All right. I just want to handle a couple of housekeeping things, and then we're gonna try something new starting next week. And I just want to go through a couple of little details. So today, from 1 to 2:30 is going to be Chart Masters. So remember, Chart Masters is I'm almost certain that it's going to be broadcast on Facebook, Facebook Live, and I'm sure there'll be a recording and we can distribute that later. But Chart Masters, for those that don't know, is a company that comes in and crunches all the FMLS data. It's exclusive to Keller Williams, so no other brokerage has got it. And they put together a bunch of packets for us. So it's like, you know, slides that help you understand how the market is trending, you know, for the last several months and year over year, and graphs, and are nice and colorful, and they analyze all the years and price ranges and areas and all that kind of stuff. It really serves two great purposes, I think. Number one, it helps you clearly understand the market so that you don't have to just say the market's good or the market's hot, right? You could say, hey, the market is up 6.3% since last year in this community in this price range or something like that. You can get a lot more detailed, and the more detail you give them, give your consumer, the number one, the better decisions they can make. And number two, the more they believe that you are great at what you do, right? An expert in the market. So Andy and Leslie are going to be presenting that today. Highly encourage you to participate. Okay, they explain a lot of the best slides. They make sure that they point out different trends that they're seeing. And they also kind of say, hey, this is a good one for buyers, or this is a good one for sellers, or here's the way to explain this one to a buyer. Here's why this is relevant, right? So again, that's from 1 to 2:30 today. Next Monday, I actually don't know exactly what the topic is, although I could probably take a guess, but we have a workshop called A to Z workshop with the mentors. So Pam, Kathy, and Susan will be running that. That's from 11 to 1 this upcoming Monday.
Is that in person or Zoom?
I believe that is in person. I suspect it will be Zoomed as well, but my understanding is that is in person. Thank you for asking that. Okay, just a quick little blurb, okay? I've seen a few examples of this in over the last couple days online, and I just want to throw out a heads up about it, okay? So where I saw the example was with Zillow. And, you know, Zillow decides that they're going to end the iBuyer stuff. And the reactions that I saw from a lot of real estate agents were, you know, very negative, to be honest. It serves you right. I hope you lose money. You know, what were you doing in the first place? You're messing up the market, like these kind of things. Your whole world is seeing your comments on that, right? And I just want to just give everyone a hint that the more negative you are online, the more people judge you in negative light, right? And you just have to be careful about how you communicate that type of news, right? Let's not forget that they just laid off 25% of their workforce. So that's a lot of families that are feeling the pain of Zillow's choices and whatever has happened, right? So, you know, if you think that it's great for you, which it probably has some advantages, be careful with the way you speak about it. Okay. Is that a fair comment? Okay, beautiful. Candace, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I was just going to say, even when I was posting the gratitudes, I had an awareness for everything that I was grateful for. There was probably someone, I was posting gratitudes every day on Facebook for over a year. And I had an awareness, and I had to say at one time that for every gratitude I have, I understand that there's someone out there who is lacking in that and doesn't have that blessing that I have. So I want you to know that I'm very sensitive to that, and you know that I understand that, and I say prayers that you're grateful for everything that you have as well, because it is, there's always a flip side to everything, and there's always somebody being affected positively and negatively. And when you can get it in your head that you can see both sides at once, just like we were talking about with the builders and our clients, it makes you I think a better human being, and well, not better, but it makes you a different human being, more tolerant, and it also helps you go through this world in a much more peaceful way.
Yeah, very well said. Exactly. There's a phrase that I like to remind myself to think about, which is the things that we take for granted are often the things that other people are praying for. Right. Oh my gosh, I something spilled on my new shirt. There's some people that haven't bought a new shirt in 20 years. You see what I'm saying? So just have that awareness. I'm not trying to be motherly here. I'm just trying to remind you that you're being watched constantly. And there are some people that, based on what they see or hear, may choose not to get into a business relationship with you. Right. So now I've always said to you guys, you're a public figure, right? You are a public figure. When you leave the house, you have to make sure that you are showing the world the type of person you are at all times. Fair enough?
Melba yesterday during her license law class made mention of the fact that, do not forget that you are a representative of Keller Williams Brokerage also, and that what you say on social media and, in parties or two people face to face, they cast a wide opinion. If you're representing Keller Williams and you're acting in a certain way, everyone must be.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, and I'm not trying to get controversial here, and I'll end this very quickly, but I think there was an agent that I think he's out of Massachusetts or something, and he worked for a little company, but ultimately what happened is he was like a big anti-mask guy, and he started like just yelling at a bunch of kids that were wearing masks and whatnot, and it got on, it was recorded, and it was posted all over social media, and this guy was a real estate agent, and his company just fired him. You can't do that. You see what I'm saying? You're free to say whatever you feel like saying, but the people that are in business with you that have offered you an opportunity are also free to say, hey, that we can't have that here. You see what I'm saying? Okay, beautiful. I think I stayed out of controversy there. Let's move on to the care call conversation. So does anyone want to share? I know this was a topic that we discussed in Bold last week. Does anyone want to share how they've used care calls in the last week or so and how those calls went? And after that, I'd like to give you a couple of kind of thoughts and strategies when you're and some examples of some questions, and then maybe we can do a little role play. Does that sound good? So who's done a care call in the last week or so that they'd like to share kind of what that felt like? How did you open it? Who did you call? How did the conversation go? Were you able to kind of weave real estate in? Walk me through that.
Phil, I'll share quick. I actually had to follow up. My son gets occupational therapy, so I had to follow up with his primary, I guess it's my coordinator, if you will. And I haven't spoken to her in months. So I kind of just gave her a call, see how her Halloween was. I know she has kids. And immediately she was like, oh, like, what are you doing? It's the middle of the day. You're not at work. And I was like, oh, it's been a while since we talked. I'm a full-time realtor now. And she was like, oh my God. And it literally just kind of opened up. I didn't have to do anything really. She asked me a bunch of questions and she was like, oh, we've been thinking about moving and this one. I was like, well, you take such good care of me all the time. Like, I'm happy to take the same care of you, but in a different way. And
Uh,
it was just natural, easy, and effortless.
Beautiful. And you were able to weave real estate in pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. And it was simply because I hadn't spoken to her in a few months. And she was like, oh, what are you doing? It's the middle of the day. And then
I love
snuck it
that.
right in.
I love that. I love how you, by the way, you threw in, I'm a full-time real estate agent. Love that. And what's the result? She actually wants to consider making a move, right?
Yeah. Like I'm done with her in about a month because he turns 3 and he moves on. So, but we've now like been establishing that relationship. She wants to meet next month for coffee, like not only to discuss my son. So we'll see.
Beautiful. And it sounds
Yeah.
like I mean, first of all, she's very well, I'm not trying to like say like what's in it for me, but this is a woman that's probably very connected,
But
right? She's meeting with a lot of families that are, how do I want to say this? There's like, the conversations are going to get deep pretty fast, right? Because they're dealing with children that need this type of attention. And this is a person who is probably pretty social, would be my guess.
yeah,
And therefore, having a woman like this in your corner is you're going to see a lot more than one transaction from it.
right.
Love that. Love that. So that might be somebody, for example, that you put on your VIP list or that you put on your
Sure.
list to, surprise and delight them in some way. Maybe you drop off a pie for Thanksgiving or something like that, right? Okay, who else wants to share a care call or a conversation like that they've had in the last week? Thank you for sharing.
Well, we know I hate care calls, but I promised you I would make them.
That's correct.
So I have
how
been
did you
making them.
overcome that, by the way, Heather?
I just had to just suck it up, honestly. That's really what it came down to. I promised Bill I would make them, and for like a week straight, I didn't make them. And then I felt like crap every day that I didn't do it. And then finally, Bill was like, are you making your calls? And I was like, no, but I'm gonna. And he was like, yeah, okay, make your calls. And so I did. And so I have been for the last 2 weeks. But I called one of my previous clients. She's actually a current client as well. So I sold an investment property for her last year. She's in contract on a new construction now, and I'll be selling her current home once she moves into her new home. But I called her just to say like, hey, how are you? I just wanted, you've been on my mind. That's usually my opener. It's like, hey, you know what? You have been on my mind. How you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely hate making these calls. But anyway, we were chit-chatting and she was like, Heather, that's so crazy. She's like, I've been thinking of you. And I've helped one of her kids and his wife buy a house as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I interviewed with her daughter and her son-in-law, but the son-in-law was like, no, I have a friend. And so she was like, my final son has a condo to sell in Brookhaven. She was like, and can we talk about it? And like, what do you know about Brookhaven? So I pulled up homes in Brookhaven and availability, did a quick CMA on like a property that fit his, to say like, because at the moment I didn't have his address, just knew it was like 2 or 3 bedroom and what school it was. And I was like, go find me his address and I'll take care of it. And so I sent her over a CMA and I have an appointment with him next week because he's been away traveling to
Awesome.
not only sell his place. Actually, I lie. He's in Decatur right now. He wants to purchase in Brookhaven. So I have an appointment for that. And then, I did the same phone call with another previous client and she was like, oh, I have a friend named Christy in Alpharetta and she wants to sell in January. I gave her your info. Let me give you her address and you can, investors want to buy her property all the time. So I have been having the conversations and obviously it feels a lot better than not having the conversations.
Well, it certainly feels a lot better when you get business out of it. And when you hear that people are grateful for the call, right? They're like, oh, I was thinking about you too. How's your family? What's going on with you? Right? They want to have conversations, right? And it's not so much applicable anymore, but like I can distinctly remember like right at the height of all the COVID stuff, like during lockdowns, like my wife was like across the street and she was talking to like the 10-year-old kid across the street for like a half an hour. And she came in, I'm like, where have you been? She's like, I was talking to the neighbor kid. I'm like, for half an hour? She's like, I want to talk to people. I'm tired of being in here all stuck up talking to y'all. Like, I want to talk to other people. Like, people want to have conversations, guys. And they all have real estate needs. We heard the other day at Bold, and I've been preaching this from the beginning. Tammy said it was 6.5%. I've always said it's more like 10%, but let's just say it's 8%. Okay, 8% of the population will be moving this year. Okay, so therefore 8% of all populations will be moving this year. Okay, and what I mean by that is 8% of Tracy Trent's database will move this year. 8% of Donna's database will move this year, right? So if I were to say, Donna, how big's your database? And you said, my database is 300 people. Well, that means that 24 of those 300 will be moving this year. And then my next question to Donna is, how many people are in your pipeline? Which is a different way of saying, who are you aware of that will be moving this year? So if she says, let's say she were to say 6, that means 18 people that she believes are in her database and are hers for the taking, right? That are her clients will be moving this year, and she doesn't even know about it. You know what that means? Somebody else is going to get paid 18 times. And by the way, I don't know of any realtor that cares more than Donna. Do you? Right? What I mean by that, and I could replace all of y'all's names in that sentence, but my point is that they're probably going to choose a realtor that doesn't care as much and isn't as thorough as much and doesn't track the deadlines as much and doesn't ask enough questions. And therefore, they might not have a great experience. So if oftentimes when somebody is having the attitude that the former Heather had, which is, I don't like making these calls, or maybe I'm interrupting their day or whatever, oftentimes what's happening is you're thinking too much about yourself. I don't want to feel this way. Maybe I don't want to feel bad if I interrupt their day. Well, here's the deal. You probably are interrupting their day. The way that you justify interrupting their day is with some type of important piece of value or just a genuine conversation that helps brighten up their day, right? And there may be some opportunity that comes from that. So if you're hesitating to make calls, what's almost certainly happening is you're thinking too much about yourself. And instead, you need to focus on the recipient of that call and see how you can brighten up their day or pass along some information, right? That would help them be better, better consumers in the future. Candace, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say sometimes, because I also know I have a lot of busy clients. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll text them and I'll say, hey, I was thinking about you. When can we chat? And then they'll say, well, I'm off on Monday. And then you have that piece of data you can add into their notes. So then I just call them on Monday.
I love that. That way you can actually have a lot of conversations in a short amount of time, and you can kind of reduce that burden of, am I interrupting them? Mm-hmm. And like Candace said, now if you want to get this person, call them on Monday. Mm-hmm. Right? Don't call them Tuesday. They already told you they work Tuesday. You follow me? Okay. Anyone else want to share a conversation, and then I'll give you a couple tips.
Well, I will. I did exactly that. I texted my client. I said, hey, I was thinking about you. And she's actually not a client. We've looked at homes. She's never pulled the trigger. She inherited a home from her mom and inherited a home from her aunt. Both are paid for. And her house is almost paid for. She lives in Griffin. And anyway, so I texted her and I was like, hey, I was thinking about you. When can we talk? And she goes, oh, can we talk on, I forgot, maybe it was Monday, this past Monday. And I said, sure. And so found out a whole bunch of things. One, I found out her son's birthday, her grandson's birthday, because they just had a birthday party. I found out, that she's partially retired now, so she's only working part-time, and she loves what she does. She works for the school board in Griffin, but her son and her grandson live with his wife in Roswell, And so she said, Candace, I've got these 3 homes and the rent's coming. She said, I put the rent really low because, they're paid off and everything. And I said, well, that's a strategy and you're helping somebody else out. She goes, but I really want to be close to my grandson in Roswell. And I was thinking about maybe, since I have friends here in Griffin, that maybe I'd just get an Airbnb or a place that I could rent out for part of the year and then come up and stay for 2 years. And so we talked about strategies about taking equity out of the 2 homes or just getting a third, a second mortgage, because that's what it would be. So anyway, I've got her hooked up with Kathy, and I've got an appointment with her next week to start looking at some Airbnbs in Roswell.
Beautiful.
And that came out of the blue.
You had me freaked out there for a moment.
Why?
Just people that are inherit homes and they're paid off and no one's there to counsel them on whether that's strategic or not.
Yeah.
Guys, the house is oftentimes the biggest part of somebody's financial picture, but I know this might sound crazy. That's insane. You don't need 3 paid off houses. Your money can be worked.
We talked about that.
Can be made more efficient than that, especially at today's interest rates. That just doesn't make any sense to me, right? That's somebody who doesn't understand money to some degree, right? And thank God she's got Candace in her corner. You see what I'm saying? And sometimes you can use the reverse kind of analysis, if you will. So if I handed you $600,000, would you go buy 3 $200,000 houses with cash? Or would you choose to use that money differently, perhaps, right? Because that money is making her $0 right now, 0.
Right.
And then she's gonna, whatever she could potentially get by renting it, she's gonna be nice and let somebody have a deal so she can have even a smaller return on the money. Oh my gosh, thank God she has you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got some strategies planned for her.
You see what I'm saying, guys? A lot of people have no clue how money works. Oh, breaks my heart, honestly. Okay.
Hey, Bill, can I share a conversation?
Please.
I like to speak with my home inspector, and I've called him, and we follow up with each other. He want to know if I have any business. So we were talking, and he said, hey, Ms. Smith, he said, you give me a lot of business, and he said, I appreciate it. He said, I'm actually in the process of trying to find some, properties for rent. And so I sent him a contact for the lender for hard money loans to get qualified with his business. And he got pre-qualified 2 days ago, signed a buyer brokerage agreement yesterday. And then he texted me and was like, my coworkers want to do the same thing. And I sent him the contact information to get approved. And he'll be sending you the pre-approval letter and signing the buyer brokerage agreement. So I gained like 2 clients in 1 week. It was amazing.
Isn't that awesome?
It was.
Guys, you just got to make the call. Remember, every single person that you see today, every one of them is going to have to live somewhere. They live somewhere. They either own the place, and if they own it, they should basically be doing one of 2 things right now, in my personal opinion, which is either selling it or refinancing it. So there's opportunity conversations to have. And if they're renting, then they should ultimately have a conversation with you about how they could move into home ownership, right? Or whether it's the time for that, or whether that's the appropriate strategy, right? Remember, I used to say, you can't make an educated decision without being educated. And so what that means to me is they gotta get an education somehow. And who better to give it to them than you? Right? Like Don and I, for example, this morning, we're talking about down payment assistance. And there's a lot involved in that, right? And no one is going to give them the money for free. So everyone needs to understand who's paying for it, what are the restrictions on it, right? And make certain that the borrower understands that, so that they make a decision that makes financial sense, right? Is it a bad product? Is it a good product? I don't know. We have to look at the details. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Here's a couple tips thank you guys all for sharing. I hope that all these examples, just hopefully bells should be ringing in your head of, oh my gosh, I could text that person. Oh my gosh, I could send that person cookies. Oh my gosh, I should ask this person this, right? Remember that that's our job, right? Our job, quite frankly, is to build relationships and grow relationships and deepen relationships. And the more we know about people's life events, the better we can be at being right there for them when they need us the most. Okay. Actually, I want to say one other thing first. I'm about to share the schedule for next week. Sorry, I should have said this at the beginning. I just want to remind, there's a couple of really good topics that I want to make sure everyone is clear on. And please, by the way, if there's a topic that you want us to cover in the morning, shout it out. Okay, let us know. We'll put it on the calendar, no question. Okay, next week we're going to do preparing for showings, best practices for preparing for showings. We're going to talk about Andrew Domnauer from Piedmont Closing Company is offering 2 new products, and I'm still working on them for a few others, but he's going to offer 2 new products available to you guys again at a discounted rate. One is going to be scheduling showings and arranging the whole thing, right? Again, it's not required, it's just available, right? And the other one is offer writing. Right. So if you want somebody to write I'm not saying you obviously need to review it and sign it yourself, but somebody to kind of get most of the legwork behind the scenes done. So if you are curious about that, or you have some more suggestions on things that you'd like him to do, or you want to just hear a little bit more about how he can function for your business, that's going to be Tuesday morning. We're going to run a session with Candace primarily on real estate on a budget on Wednesday. Thursday, we're going to do role play. I think we're going to do role play once a week because we got a real good response from that last week. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time on MREA next Friday. So again, everything is recorded, as we know, but I would love to pick up the attendance and the interaction here on the morning huddle. So please make sure those are part of your schedule. So we talked about in bold the Ford model. Right. So this can kind of give you a structure for different topics and questions that you can bring up when you are in conversation with your people. OK, Ford. So F-O-R-D. Ford is friends and family. Right. How's the friends? How's the family? What are you up to lately? You're asking questions about, the people, them or the people they spend a lot of time with. Occupation is O. How's work? Are you working from home now? Are you still going into the office? Are you still a lawyer? Are you still, selling cars? Or, what's keeping you busy these days? Right. A few weeks ago, we had this conversation around kind of appropriate language around, primarily it was directed at stay-at-home moms. But like when you believe me, or you shouldn't necessarily believe me, I've just witnessed it from afar. Stay-at-home moms, they got the hardest job in town. That's way harder than any of our jobs, way harder, right? So when somebody says, oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom, you should be quick to correct them on that, right? Oh my gosh, I know how hard you're working and you probably don't get enough gratitude. I'm going to go ahead and give you gratitude. That's a hard job, right? So good for you, right? And you don't want to ask questions like, what do you do for a living? Because that will cause somebody who might be a stay-at-home mom, for example, or who might stay with, maybe they're a caregiver for a sick family member or something like that. That could make them feel like a little smaller, right? So you might say something like, how do you spend your time? Or something of that nature, where it's less about like, what activity do you do in exchange for money, and more about, how do you spend your time and these kind of things, so people can like go in whatever direction they want to go. Does that make sense? Anyone want to add to that, comment on that? I didn't offend anyone, did I? Okay, good. R is recreation. These are, what are your hobbies? What do you do for fun? Are you planning to go on any vacations, right? What are the kids into these days, right? The kids playing soccer, basketball, are they, doing after school activities, these kind of things. And D is dreams, So, gosh, what's the next vacation you're going to take, right? Where's Johnny going to college, right? If you guys thought about moving, where are you planning to, retire or something like that, right? So that can be a nice structure for giving you ideas on what questions to ask, okay? The topic of, or the kind of the theme of these conversations, it says care conversations allow us to utilize the Ford method to check in with and show care and compassion for our sphere. With this conversation, you don't tell and sell your way to success. You ask and listen your way into the hearts and heads of your listener, right? So the care conversation is not to be like, well, I'm selling houses now. So if you know anyone that wants to buy something, sell something, or invest in something, call me now. Okay, now that I've already said that, I gotta go, right? That's not going anywhere, right? You want to listen, be caring, compassionate, contribute, right? What we're trying to identify is something kind of basically that they need help with, right? A question they have, somebody that they might need a referral for somebody. They might, need an introduction to a dentist or a financial planner or a painter or whatever. Maybe it's got to do with real estate. Maybe it doesn't. It doesn't make a difference, right? So what can you contribute? So what issue are they having? What complication are they having? And how can you solve it? Like I've joked before, we're kind of just really well paid concierges. Is that a word? We just basically help people do whatever they need help with. And sometimes we get paid and sometimes we don't get paid. And overall, we get really well paid. Does that make sense? So somebody says, hey, can you send me the name of your accountant? That's your job. You're building a relationship. Go do it. Don't complain. Make sense? And then, of course, have common sense, right? If I call Michael and I say, hey, Michael, how's everything going? And he says, oh, my gosh, my friend just passed away or something like that. Don't bring up real estate, for crying out loud, right? Have some compassion, slow everything down.
Wait, if they just died, there's going to be a house to sell. I'm kidding.
In my sixth sense of humor, I'm thinking that was so smart. But I've got my compassionate hat on right now, and let them bring that up, okay? Or at least call them back in a week and say, is there anything I can do? Like, is there anything I can do for their family? Like, I'm sure they probably have some questions. I just want to make myself available, right? Don't be like, hey, it's a great time to sell. Did you know the prices are up 17%? Say, I'm sure they'll have some questions. So, I just want to make myself available for those. Use common sense. That, Michael, I wish I could say that was a test. It wasn't a test, but you are listening well. I appreciate that. Okay. Here's a couple of examples of some questions, okay? Right. How's the family? Hey, I saw on social media that you got a new dog. What's its name? Right. I saw on social media, blah, 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 blah. Saw on social media, you went to the Braves parade. How was that? I saw on social media, you just got back from the beach. What was that like? Hey, I saw on social media, you just went to San Francisco. Hey, I'm thinking about going to San Francisco. What was your favorite part? Where did you stay? What did you do? Who did you see? Did you go to Napa? Right. Just ask a bunch of questions, right? How are the kids doing? Isn't your oldest about to go to college? Right. By the way, I'm not crazy about that question because it kind of insinuates that you don't know the oldest's name. So you might want to do just a tiny bit of homework on Facebook or something to figure out if you can figure out their name and then make sure that's in the notes, right? If you're like, hey, Michael, so, how's your girlfriend doing? That means I don't know his girlfriend's name, right? If I knew her name, I'd say her name. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, just don't tell my wife.
Yeah, we are recording this, but Michael does not have a girlfriend, to my understanding. Okay.
Thank you.
I want to say something. Can I just jump in? The other day, I was about to reach out to previous clients of mine from last year, and it's been a minute since I spoke to them. And so I jumped on her Facebook and I was like, okay, what's been going on with Grace in the last few months? And she is not a big Facebook person, but she has a doctorate and she's a professor at Georgia State in Italian Renaissance art. And she had 2 publications published. And so I was like fully let it. I was like, hey, Grace, I'm so sorry. It's been a minute. I was like, but you know what? I was thinking about you. And the other day, I saw that you had 2 publications posted. And man, the conversation opened. And she was like, it's been such a long time coming. Thank you so much. So if you can think of something to talk about that's relative, like he said about like your oldest son versus your son's name, jump on Facebook if you've got them. Even jump on Facebook anyway. Maybe their page is public and just do a little browsing. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of figure it out. There's so much information there.
Yeah, great point. I mean, look, especially for something like, I'm not a big Facebook poster, but if I post something on Facebook, it's generally something I'm proud of or I want to talk about, right? So like that's the case with a lot of people. That's basically like, make me feel important. The way you make them feel important is about talking about things they want to talk about, right? So if they're posting a lot about their vacations, or they're posting a lot about their new job, or they're posting a lot about their kids' activities or whatever, that's what they want to talk about, guys. They're giving you clues, right? Hey, what's the first trip you plan to take when this pandemic is over? Right, this is probably written a little while ago, for example, right? Candace, you reaching for the mute button? Okay. Again, use common sense. If you're able, you can bring up real estate. I do want you to ask yourself the following question though, which is, have I earned the right to bring up real estate? Right? So let's just use that. Let's kind of use an example. Let's put a word for that. That's a withdrawal, if you will. I'm going to withdraw something from this conversation, right? I'm going to see if I can get a lead, so to speak, or get a hint, right? I only deserve to take a withdrawal if I've given deposits, right? Let's use a banking analogy. If I were to walk into Bank of America right now and I say, can I have some money? They say, well, what's your account number? Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to weigh the deposits versus the ability to withdraw, right? I know this is a little ethereal, but stay with me. And I say, well, I don't have an account here. And they said, you understand how this thing works? We can't give you any money because you hadn't given us any money. You see what I'm saying? So then I go to SunTrust or Truist or whatever, and I walk into Truist, or no, not Truist, I'm sorry, Wells Fargo. And I walk in the door and they're like, Bill, how you doing? And one clerk runs off to get me a cup of coffee, and the other clerk runs off to, shake my hand. And the next clerk's like, hey, you want money from 4405 today or 5732 today, right? I made a lot of deposits at Wells Fargo, so I get a chance to take withdrawals. You follow what I'm saying? So you got to give a little bit before you can expect to get stuff, right? So the purpose of all of these conversations is to give, right? And the withdrawals will come naturally, right? If you want to talk about your work, then ask them about their work. Right? If you want to talk about your family, ask them about theirs. Candace.
I was going to say, I think it's kind of the phenomenon, I can't say the word phenomenon, that if an attorney friend of yours called you and just said, hey, I just wanted to say hi and talk, my mind's immediately going to go to anything that I can think of that I might need advice on. And I think that's what happens in our care calls too, that when they know you're a realtor, they're like, oh my goodness, this person's calling me. What am, and their mind starts working in that way. So I think it's just this weird, wonderful phenomenon that happens.
Yeah, it's like we have an interesting business because it's somewhat natural for number one, everyone can be a client, which is not the case with pretty much any other business that I'm aware of, right? The other thing is like we get a chance to prospect, right? Like I live next door to a divorce attorney. Like he can't really prospect. Like what's he gonna do? Call his friends and be like, hey, you tired of living with so-and-so? You know I do divorces, right? Like he can't do that. Like how lucky are we that we get to prospect, right? Like I'm friendly with a counselor. Like he can't prospect. Hey, you know anyone that needs help now? Like he doesn't have that ability. That's not appropriate, so to speak. Guys, you all realize how lucky we are to be able to have these conversations? Have you ever thought about it that way?
Hey, I want to say I prospect all the time just by wearing my name tag.
Yes.
It's amazing. I can be at Tractor Supply or in a grocery store or wherever. If I'm wearing this name tag, people these complete strangers coming up to me and say, "Hey, how's the market?" I'm like, "What?" And then I realize I'm wearing my name tag. And say, oh, they realize I'm a real estate agent, and they're asking me questions. It's unbelievable. Sometimes it's just uncanny. I've gotten business that way. It's
I
crazy.
know. It's the best $15 you ever spent, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh, by the way, right, you're again, you're always on stage, right? So if people know you in the community to be a realtor and you're, you know, acting a fool at the Braves parade, then, you know, you're on stage, remember.
Yeah.
All right, let me just take 1 more minute to talk about these 3 questions, which is the questions that we've talked about, the 3 ask questions, right? Have you or your family thought about making a move recently? You can ask these at any time. Door knocking, a casual get together with friends or whatever, in care calls, right? Have you or your family thought about making a move lately? Right? Do you happen to know of any neighbors or someone from church or work that we could be helping with their real estate needs? And then finally, when you think of real estate, who is it that you trust? And if they say they don't have anyone, which oftentimes they will, way oftentimes they will, say, I wanted to know if I might have the right to earn the responsibility of being your trusted resource, right? Would it be okay if I stayed in touch with you periodically, just to let you know what's going on in your neighborhood and the market in general? And if you need anything, I'll be here for you. That's not salesy, right? It's not salesy at all. It's basically saying, hey, I want to be a resource for you.
Yeah, that's some serious contribution. That's great.
I agree. So I would memorize these 3 questions, right? Have you or your family thought about making a move recently? Do you happen to know any neighbors or someone from church or work that we could be helping with their real estate needs? We can be helping, by the way. Because like if Michael gets a client, like I'm kind of helping a little bit with that. Am I not? Right? The lender's helping a little bit with that. Are they not? Right? You got a team around you. When you think of real estate, who is it that you trust? Not do you have an agent, right? Because they might know somebody in real estate and they don't trust them, right? Or they know somebody in real estate and they don't have a lot of confidence in them, or they had a poor experience last time they worked together or something like that, right? I wanted to know if I might have the right to earn the responsibility. That sounds really professional, does it not? Of being your trusted advisor. Would it be okay if I stayed in touch with you periodically, just to let you know what's going on in your neighborhood and the market overall, right? And if you need anything, I'll be here for you. Okay. Now, I also just want to throw in one last point, which is oftentimes, this is not so relevant with care calls, but oftentimes if you're lacking somebody's contact information or part of their contact information, you may have to barter for it, for lack of a better way to put it. So you should be thinking to yourself, what do I have to use to barter, right? So that could be things like neighborhood nurture, a vendor list, promise of introducing somebody to somebody, like, hey, I'll introduce you to the lender. Let me make sure I have your email or whatever. Refinancing your current home, that type of connection. Hey, I'll introduce you to my painter. Hey, I'll introduce you to my CPA or whatever. So here's a copy of my mobile app. You can do some searching on your own, these kind of things. So what do you have? What can you offer somebody that they may be willing to trade their contact information for? Make sense? All right, any questions, thoughts, feedback from today?
I would like to add something. So
Please.
I'm not really good at getting people's addresses when I like host an open house or like whatever. And I just don't ask for that information. But if you don't know about, I think it's fastpeoplesearch.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can, if you have someone's phone number, you can get their current address. You can like pull it up in Realist. You can check out what their current property looks like. You can get it. You can formulate an ID on that. You can even do like a CMA, just based off of like that kind of knowledge. Obviously, Realist is not always accurate when it comes to like square footage. Sometimes they'll tell you they got an extra bathroom or an extra bedroom, but you can do your best. And when you're talking to them, you know, you can not be like, hey, I stalked you, so I know all about you, but you can certainly whittle in like, oh, I have a lot of knowledge of your community, right? Because you've done some background work. So it's just another way of like kind of one, getting some extra information from them, but two, also, you know, just verifying even that they're telling the truth, right? Because, you know, I got a guy who comes into open houses in Roswell all the time. He does not remember me from a hole in the wall, but I know him every single time. Melissa Guy was at an open house with me one day and she was like, that dude's creepy. I'm like, don't worry. He comes to every open house. He's going to tell you he wants to buy it. It's like way out of his budget. He'll come to another one. But the point is that people come, they want to talk to people. They're liars. They don't always tell the truth. It's a way to vet them as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I use forewarn for the same thing.
I do that too, but sometimes forewarn gives 17 aliases and 32 addresses, and like it's not the most accurate. So I do that more to see if they have any criminality behind them before I'm gonna like meet with them. You know what I mean?
And I actually do it during an open house too, just to make sure I have the correct information for the person as far as their phone number, and that way
That's
there I
smart.
can kind of catch it before they leave.
That is smart. And
Yeah.
the other thing I was going to say is for those of you who haven't met him yet, Jonathan Stevens, one of our vendor partner, will sponsor a giveaway if you'd like, or food or whatever you want for an open house. And I think Drew has worked with him, and he sponsored a giveaway of like $40, and the people had to give their contact information, including I think address and everything, in order to be in the drawing for that.
Yeah, he provided a gift card for a restaurant.
Yeah.
Cool.
If I could add, Melissa Guy has a really good app on her iPad where people sign in for the open house, and they cannot get to the next level unless they put in all the information, like everything, email, phone number, and address. So you guys, if you want that, you should talk to her about it. She told me, but I forgot what it was.
Okay.
Excellent.
And one other thing you can do for that, especially with COVID, is you could say, you know, somebody might say like, hey, I'm not going to sign in or something like that. Like you could say something to the effect of, you know, the seller has requested that everyone sign in for, you know, God forbid something where, you know, we were to get word of somebody was here that had a positive COVID test or something. We want to be able to reach out to everyone that was here and just alert them to that. Right. So it's just possibly another way of getting people's contact information for their own benefit, by the way, should they be a little reluctant to give it to you otherwise. Okay, let me tell you about what we want to do. We'll start this on Monday. Two ideas. Number one, we want to make sure that we are respectful of everyone's time. We've been going over quite a bit lately, and I just want to make sure that everyone doesn't feel like they're missing stuff if they sign off, because more often than not, they're signing off to make, you know, go lead generate. So we want to be respectful of that. So our goal now is to have a hard stop at 9:15. What I'd like to do from 9:10 to 9:15 on all these calls is to take a quick run around the room and have everyone tell us what their one thing for the day is, right? So Tracy would say, hey, my one thing is to add these 15 people to my database. Hey, Donna would say, hey, my one thing is to, you know, finalize the client event that I've got going on. Or, hey, my one thing, Michael, is to add 5 people to the database today, whatever it is, right? We want to make sure, number one, that we can give each other ideas. And number two, that you get a chance to publicly share what your intention is. And hopefully that will create a little bit more commitment to getting it done and getting it done early. Make sense? Is that something that you'd be interested in doing?
Yeah, I think that the accountability is good.
I like it.
Yes. Beautiful. And just a final reminder, I sent out a list, or I sent out a link for the PC calendar, so that you could add that to your Google Calendar. And you can, you know, what do you call it? You know, show it or not show it or whatever, but all the links and all the classes and whatnot will be updated behind the scenes, and they'll just pop up on your calendar. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, or you want me to resend the link to you, please let me know. I'll actually repost the link here in just a second, and please take a moment to add it to your calendar, okay?
Greta's going to be so excited.
Oh, Greta and I built it together.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful
Thanks,
day.
Bill. Thanks,
Thanks, Bill.
Candace.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.